Hello, everybody. Today we are here with Leslie Cannon. She's representing her own company called KeyPro, but the reason she's on here is because she has a lot of inside knowledge about the food industry. And of course, this is what led her to develop her own product to fill in needs that are not being met by the food industry. So this is beyond supplementation. This is more about food, but I'm happy to hear a lot of her insights because she's already shared some with me. And this is technical stuff that we say a lot. We say a lot of things like, hey, the food industry doesn't really care about nutrition and stuff. And, that sounds kind of like we're just putting the industry down. But if you speak to industry insiders, such as Leslie, you realize this is 100% true.
Okay, well, let's see. Way long time ago, back when I was 15, I accidentally got a job in the food industry and could never get out of it. Even went to college, turned down jobs because I said, no, I'm getting out of the food industry, was never allowed to get out. So fast forward, when became a manufacturer sales rep in the mid 90s, seems like yesterday, it was very eye-opening and very awakening because at that point I got to meet a lot of people, work with R&Ds, work with manufacturing, and really get involved, the FDA, importing, exporting rules, regulations from different countries, ingredients, chemicals, why they're there, why they're not there. The first thing I want to say about the food industry is you kind of have four things. The first most thing outside of developing a product is they have to be very careful with liability. Liability for them is very, very important. So liability means that the food should not make anyone sick ever. So therefore, they're going to put in plenty of preservatives, additives, whatever they have to do to make sure that they're not going to get sued and that you're not going to get sick. That's a really good thing. Yes, but then on the other side, it's not that good of a thing. It gives it shelf life. They can make flavor enhancements. They can make it look pretty. And there's something in the industry we call a thick line. And product developers that are allowed to, or that are able to make a thick line, that product is durable and consumers are very, very happy with it.
So
With
thick line
real
is
food,
basically a sturdy product that'll last on the shelf a long time.
right, and it can take a lot of abuse.
Hmm.
I'll give you an
Like
example.
heat and cold fluctuations, that kind of stuff.
Right, absolutely. But it goes even beyond that. People want items that were never meant to be shelf stable. I'll give you a perfect example. Whipped cream. Whipping cream is a great flavor. It's a great item, especially for icing cakes, but it's not shelf stable. So when we went to our food chemist and said, everyone loves our whipped topping, but they want it shelf stable, they looked at us and said, that's not possible. I said, well, you're going to have to do it because everybody wants it. So it took them a year and a half, but this is how things happen. So it took them a year and a half. They said, okay, try this. We tried it. It's not quite thick enough. Beef it up a little bit better. Make it a little prettier. Make it taste a little bit better. And that's how you go from real food to fake food.
Hmm.
Is you have too many people in line and they get on this little bandwagon of wouldn't it be great if? And then everyone goes to work to make this wouldn't it be great if happen. It's kind of like bread. Real bread in the very, very beginning, the mill would grind the wheat 3 times a week. That was very important because once you crack that grain of wheat open, then all the nutrients are gone in 24 hours. So everybody made their bread within that 24-hour window and ate it. The loaves were very small, they were very dense and very nutritious. You had very little of it. You didn't need much of it. So then everyone said, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to grind our own wheat? Sure. Well, guess what happens? There goes all your nutrients. Wouldn't it be great if this stuff was fluffier and lighter for dessert? Sure. Wouldn't it be great if our bread was like air? Yes. That's when Wonder Bread was invented.
Hmm.
Wonder Bread. Well, in my industry, you go, wonder what's in it. Not much. A whole lot of air. We have that issue even today. We have bakers that are real bakers. They're making real bread. It's heavy. It's expensive. They can't compete with flours. You go to flours. It's light. It's fluffy. It's flavorful. Whee, like a breath of fresh air. And everybody loves them. And they're extremely cheap. But it's not real food.
Mhm.
But everybody loves it. And that's what's really going on. But when you add all the preservatives and chemicals and flavor enhancements, This wreaks havoc on your stomach, on your digestive system. There's no enzymes, there's lack of it. You have these all natural flavors, which are most of the time oil based, all natural, but oil based. Your body is not designed to take in a lot of these oils, enhanced oils, or what I call oil concentrate. Let's look at spearmint or mint. Mint is great. You can take a leaf, you can chew on it, and it's awesome. You get the flavor, it's wonderful. But when you take that oil and concentrate it, and you do that too much, it's really bad for your system. A very small amount can be great, but more than that, especially if you keep doing it over and over, it can be pretty bad for your body overall. So that's kind of how things developed and how things got that way. Now you've got foods with such a long shelf life, even in the natural foods, that the enzymes that are very specific. Let's take a pear. A pear, when it's created, it has natural enzymes. So when the nutrients of that pear are completely ripe and at its total max, at that point, just right when it's starting to fall, the enzymes will activate and they will start to decay that pear. Okay, sounds great, right? You know, it's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to eat the pear before this point, but after this point, you want it ripe but not overripe.
Hmm.
So the enzymes naturally are specific to that pear start breaking it down. Why is that important to your body? Because it's specific to that food. So every food in nature has an enzyme that's specific to it to help your body break it down. If that is no longer there, now your body, which has non-specific enzymes, has to work twice as hard to break it down. So now you've got foods, natural foods, where the enzymes have been stunned, so they're not working. Then you have processed foods, which have no enzymes. So what happens to your poor body? You're overworking it. And everybody wonders why they have reflux.
This enzyme thing, this can go over our heads. So we do produce our own enzymes in our body, but like
You
you
do.
said, this is supposed to work together with the enzymes that are supposed to be in food. So you hear a lot of people talking about microwaves, saying, "Oh, the microwaves destroy the enzymes." Now, in our camp, we only really half kind of care about that because we know that we do produce our own enzymes, and we don't want you eating microwave food every day. So if it's once in a while, it's not literally going to kill you or cause a disease or something like that. But as you're saying, do it over and over, you are overburdening your body. You are asking too much of your digestive system. And for one example is lactose. Lots of people come to us saying they can't really tolerate lactose, although they could when they were a kid. So that tells us that they're not actually lactose intolerant. They are producing some lactase, which is the enzyme to digest the protein lactose, and there is always a corresponding protein. And my guess is there's not enough of this protein in the food supply, and or our digestive system is already overburdened. And I'm going to pass the mic back to you, but I just learned recently, interestingly, that lactose-free milk is actually not lactose-free milk. It's regular milk with lactase added into it. So that was a fun
Absolutely.
fact that I just learned.
Yes, that was it's really kind of funny. Your dairy, first of all, you want the right kind of dairy. Let me kind of hit back on this. Cheap dairy you should not put in your body. Quality dairy is very, very healthy and good for your body. Very different. A one gene milk is what we have in America. It is very plentiful. The cows can make up to 10 gallons per milking on it. I can't remember if it's 10 gallons a day or 10 gallons per milking. Forgive me on that one. Then you have your A2 gene, which is a much better cow. It produces much less milk, but it's a much higher quality milk. It also produces more fat and butter in that milk. The biggest thing about that, though, is that your body has a hard time digesting the A1 gene protein. The A gene 2 protein is very easy. I've talked to Indians who moved to America that drank milk all the time, and now they absolutely will not touch American milk. Um, so it is very true. I had a milk producer actually prove it to me, and it's quite amazing. Now, healthy milk, yes, lactase is an enzyme. It's very simple. If you get a good quality fermented dairy, that is in there in enough because it's breaking down the sugars in the milk. which is where the problems are. And it will also break down that protein to a point. So yes, lactase will break down all the sugars. Then you have, get A2 gene, and you're not going to have a problem. Now, A2 gene commercial milk, you still may have a problem with it. Right off the top of my head, I'm not remembering exactly what the other problem part of it is. I think it's the lactase. Most of them don't have both because basically that's a fermented dairy. When you have fermented dairy, the sugars are broken down and so are the proteins, no problem whatsoever. Once you do a fermented dairy for, let's say, a month or two, at that point, your body's going to start storing up some of these enzymes and having enough to start breaking it down by itself. Over a course of a few months, milk should, or any dairy shouldn't be an issue. But again, stay away from the cheap dairy.
What exactly is the difference between cheap and expensive dairy? What are the different processes that are going to be used? And does this have anything to do with pasteurization?
Oh boy, you're talking about 5 hours. 5 hour conversation. Let me see if I can make it really short. I ran into a gentleman back in 2012 by the name of Jack Mathis, whose father started a dairy in 1912. They were obsessed, and I will say obsessed because I know Jack personally, and he is obsessed with healthy cows, healthy pasture, healthy treatment of the cows to have healthy milk, treating them well, making happy cows, having the right amount of food. Then you have sanitation. Sanitation in dairy is extremely important, and that is usually the one thing that is somewhat neglected, especially when it comes to cleaning the tits of the cow. If those are cleaned properly, then nothing bad is going to get into the milk. And if the milk is, if the cow's taken good care of. So that's where it really starts. What goes into the cow goes into you. So if they're putting corn, GMO grain into the cow, all of that is going into you.
In a less than perfect sanitary conditions on a farm, I'm assuming that the farmer, the lazy or the cheap farmer or the commercial farmer is just going to give the cows more antibiotics, basically. Am I right on that?
It's not so much antibiotics anymore because the FDA and rules and regulations, the agriculture departments have come out and they do tests and they say, you cannot do XYZ, before it goes into commercial production. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So the antibiotics now, they are very much limiting them. Most of everyone is no longer putting the hormones in there that was creating them to have more milk and causing girls some issues. It's one of those things where the dairy people are like, we're going to have to up the price. And the producer's like, no, you really can't. Consumers don't want to pay it. Then they up it a little bit and consumers go, no, we're not paying that much. So producers come back to the dairymen and go, hey guys, you're going to have to find a cheaper way to do it. So that's the lines of how things go. So somebody is going to come up with some way to keep it cheap. And cheap is not always good.
Hmm.
It's just not always possible. And at this point, it is not possible. Having non-GMO grain is expensive. This whole facade that cows can eat grass and they don't need anything else is totally insane. You cannot have a working animal and only feed them grass. They cannot sustain themselves on it.
It'll wither
It's
away and
not,
die.
it will. So getting non-GMO grain and non-GMO food, non-GMO carrots, don't get me on that one. A story about that one's funny. Well, short time. So my farmers that are very conscious, that are organic, and they're doing everything they can to raise non-GMO themselves or to buy it, it is expensive. Because if you have something next door that is using GMO and that blows onto your property, that's a problem. Or if you have someone next door using pesticides and it blows onto your property, that's also a problem. So they have a lot of things that they're fighting with. And the dairy is losing. The good quality dairies are losing. They're going out of business. People don't want to pay the $8 a gallon of milk when they can go to Walmart and get it for $1.99 or another store for $2.99. Why are they going to pay that? Because that really is what you need to be drinking. If you want to buy cheap now, you're going to pay for it in health expenses later.
Well, let me say that I'm from Canada, and generally, I do believe we have a much better dairy industry overall. But even there's still the same problems, basically, with cheap and good quality dairy and all that. Now, we drink real raw goat milk, unpasteurized, from our friends. That's really the only milk that we actually drink. But in America here, like you're talking about a gallon of milk for $1.99, that scares the heck out of me. I come to America, almost all the dairy makes me sick. It takes a while to climatize myself to it. And when we're talking about just like cheap packaged cheeses and milks from the grocery store, I don't even want it. And I love cheese. And it's like I feel deprived every time I come here because I am genuinely scared to eat it because most of it is so low quality.
Yeah, the cheese. There's things I have to be careful about of what I can and cannot say. The best thing that I can tell you is flip over the package and look at the ingredients. If it has more than three ingredients, maybe it's not what you want.
What type of things would they be adding into cheeses and dairies to keep them cheap?
Oh, I'm so not supposed to go into that. Um, let's just make it broad in general. Fillers. The one thing that people may not be aware of is that cream is considered gold in the food industry. So cream makes cheese, fat makes cheese, fat makes cream. That all kind of goes together. So that is the goal. That is what goes into your very high end foods. So they came out with this neat somebody, I don't remember when it was now because I'm a lot older, came out with this great idea of, we can make cheap 1% milk, 2% milk, and 0%, fat free milk. And that needs to be a fad because we can make it really cheap. We have plenty of it. So let's just get everybody on this low fat kick. Well, okay, that's cheap. It was easy and people bought into it. Going fat free is not your friend. A lot of these cheeses are made with skim milk, 1% milk, 2% milk, and then they add fillers to bulk it up to make you believe that to mimic that cream, that full fat.
So the 1% and 2%, like this is actually a little bit beyond my barrier of knowledge. We're at the limit of what I know about dairy production and cheese production. And so 1% and 2%, are they diluted? Like I know that cream is the gold. We tell people that. We tell people don't buy milk at the store. If you're gonna buy anything, I literally tell them just buy cream and water it down if you want to have it watered down, because I'm pretty sure that's what 1% and 2% is. I did not know they could even make cheese from 1% and 2%. I thought they had to make it from cream.
They do have to make it from cream to a point, but they can add a lot of fillers to it.
Hmm.
Or they can back add a bunch of oil.
This is rather insidious, truthfully, when you think that your food is like. I literally thought it was just made of cream. I didn't even know that you really could add that much more to it, other than dyes and stuff like that.
Oh, they can do a lot of things with it. They can, I mean, look at Cheese Whiz. I mean, Cheese Whiz came out a long time ago, and now I can't stand it. But as a kid, I absolutely loved it. Oh, give me some Ritz crackers and Cheese Whiz, and I thought I died and gone to heaven. I was like, oh no, 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 no. And it's kind of like yogurt. So I look at yogurt and it goes fat free. I'm like, that's not yogurt. I mean, really? Fat free yogurt? Really? I mean, to
Yeah, it
me,
doesn't
it's
even
like
make sense.
no, to me, it's like an oxymoron. Like, all right, so I'm not even going to touch it. Put it back. The the other thing that people do is they add a lot of sugar to things. So oil, sugar, and filler. Those are cheap ingredients. Those are very bad for your body. Your body doesn't like them. Well, actually, your brain loves them, especially sugar.
Mhm.
Bad bacteria overgrowth absolutely love sugar as well. That's why sugar addiction is more addictive and harder to break than cocaine.
I believe it. If you need me to back that up, I mean, we know plenty of people who got off drugs. Maybe it was a little bit rough, but they got off of it. It wasn't that big of a deal. But try getting people off of sugar. Very, very, very difficult. And daily, people come to us and ask us what to do. And often, very often, they have a problem that we must tell them to go 100% sugar free for at least 90 days. And it might be one of the scariest things that we ever have to tell to people. And very few of them actually even do it. And they come back a few months later and say, hey, I still have a problem. Basically, they didn't quit sugar.
Once you understand the double whammy from the brain craving and then your gut craving, and you understand why that's going on, and we put you on a very particular diet, you can do it. Yes, you do have to be a little bit mindful, but it's not that difficult. It really can be done. Healthy fats are your friend, and cream is one of them. Get away from the sugar, get away from the fillers, and get away from processed foods, and you can do really well. Unfortunately, in America, most of the foods that you eat are processed. Even things that you don't think are processed are processed.
Well, we're talking about dairy. I would consider all pasteurized dairy to be processed for sure.
Yeah, well, okay, since we're talking about dairy and you actually asked me about pasteurization. Well, when I started Kepro, Jack Mathis believed in low pasteurization, which means it's heated to like, what is it, 140 for 30 minutes. So that's your low temp. So I tried that one with a couple of the dairies that were local, and I didn't have that great of results with it. Then I went up to the HTST and had really great results with certain dairies products.
What type of
Um,
results? What do you mean? What are we measuring here?
well, what we're measuring of how Kepro to keep my Kepro probiotics, how they like these milks and how they don't like them. And also, talking to my microbiologist. So, what we found out with the low temp, which is going to be high cream, these are going to be high cream milks, and non-homogenized. So that was non-homogenized, high cream, low pasteurized milks. The microbes did not like them very well. They have a hard time competing, and there's a lot of things for them to compete against. And there's also things that in the American diet that this is where it gets complicated. This is where it gets complicated. Let me see if I can explain it. You have all kinds of microbes. There's millions of different kinds of microbes. If your body is not used to a certain set of microbes and you introduce too much of an unknown microbe, that can give you an issue. So they try to come up with the microbes that most everybody generally across the board is called GRAS, GRAS, which is the FDA's definition for it, that it is safe for humans. So when you start getting into your raw milks and you look at how much of the population, especially here in the US, have never had that in their body, you put that in there and it can make them sick. Is it going to kill them? Probably not. It's just that there's things in there their bodies aren't used to and do not know how to handle. So, with that in mind, when I put in my strands of bacteria into these milks, we watch how they do and how they adjust or not adjust. And if they're having a hard time, then we know that they're having too much of competing bacteriums in there. So, for that matter, we went to the HDSC high cream, high fat, which means it's going to have less competing. So, we put those in there and there's less for them to compete with. All the nutrition is still there. It's not destroyed. That was the thing that I did have the food industry prove to me, which they did. So I'm okay with the HTST. The ultra pasteurized milk, there's no sense in even drinking it. I mean, it's literally dead food, completely dead. It's just what I call belly filler, and
It's
it's
like milk
expensive.
flavored water.
Well, I mean, it's milk, but everything's dead. But we have a saying: if a bug won't touch it, you shouldn't either.
Hmm.
Because bugs are going to eat what's nutritious. And if there's nothing nutritious in something, why are you eating it? It's a belly stuffer, and your body's going to have a hard time digesting it, processing it, and there's no value to your body. Plus, you're running the risk of getting your bad bacteria out of balance with your good bacteria.
There's a thought process used by pro vegan, pro plant based advocates that say that we should be eating living food, basically. And they say that, well, when we eat dead meat, it's dead food or something. Well, I don't believe that. But all plants, all animals, everything does have energy in it. And the closer to death that we eat it, the better it is for us. So when you, I hope I'm correct on this, but every plant that I'm aware of, once you pick it, it starts to deplete itself of nutrients. It can be slower or faster depending on the plant. It can oxidize or not depending on the temperature, depending on if it's punctured or ground up or something like that. But generally, the faster you eat it once it's picked off of the plant or once it drops, the coconut drops from the tree or whatever, the faster you eat it, the more nutritious it's going to be. It might even be optimal to eat things largely directly right off of the plant. So pick, eat. And it would be the same with animals for the most part. And we can kill the enzymes in it. We can kill the energy in it, basically. So what you're saying is it's dead. It means it's got no energy in it to me. It's got no electrons in it. And for a multitude of reasons, partially because of the enzymes, partially because of the bacteria in it, partially because of time, partially because of oxidation.
And nutrition. I mean, and that's the thing that people do not realize. Nutrition does not hang around forever. It does deplete once the food is, like you said, picked. It does deplete. Wheat, the reason wheat was so around for so many thousands of years, I know it's the most unpopular thing in the world to say now, but because when you took it off the plant, as long as it was not cracked, it was whole, the nutrition would be good for thousands of years. Amazing. I don't know of too many foods that you can do that with. It's like, wow, okay. And the nutrition, they say, is still intact. When we talk about dead food in the food industry, it means devoid of nutrition, devoid of living matter. I mean, everything is just dead. There's no benefit to your body to consume it at that point.
I agree. And I know it is controversial to talk about wheat these days, but people ask us all the time. They say, "Oh, why could they eat wheat back in Jesus's day or whatever? Why do they eat wheat up in the Hunza Valley?" Our answer is because it's completely different. It's a different plant. Well, number one, we've changed the nature of the plant itself. We've changed the way that we actually produce breads. You're talking about milling. That's one detail I didn't even know about. I knew about the fact that we used to add bones to it and wood ash and all sorts of other things to fortify it, so that the flour itself was only made up of one part wheat and then some parts of this other stuff. But yeah, so the question is, well, why do we eat this stuff for thousands of years, and it's only become a problem for us in the last 100 years or so? And you are shedding light on the even more elaborated answer. I know that there can be even more factors than this to it too.
Well, first of all, bread that we know in the grocery store is not bread from even 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is not. I have known a lot of bakers that actually would go and get wheat that was not cracked. They would mill it themselves. They would make bread, and it is nothing like. In fact, the first question they'll ask you is, "Have you eaten this before?" And if the answer is no, they'll tell you, eat just a very small amount. Your body is not going to be able to handle it. It does not look, smell, or taste anything like what today's bread is. So today's bread is tremendously overprocessed. There's absolutely no nutritional value to it. And there's so much air pumped into it, it just holds the stuff you put on it, really. And doctors, you say, well, it's good for a holder. And literally, that's what they mean. It has no other value other than it's not going to get gooey on your fingers. That way you're not touching the mayonnaise and the meat and the mustard and the ketchup or whatever you're putting on it, or the cheese. It's literally a holder. Bread in the Bible, they said, eat unleavened bread. This is very true. Well, all of the bread today is yeast. It's risen. It rises. You're not supposed to eat that. And people go, oh, bread today. And I'm like, well, are you talking about, you're still talking about stuff in the grocery store, right? Yeah, bread. No, not bread. So it is very interesting. And the wheat plant itself today is not what it used to be. But not only that, I was reading an article. Of course, there's thousands of articles. I don't really have any proof, but I found it very interesting. And I don't remember exactly a lot of the details, but they were saying that proteins, wheat, peanuts, and oils were used in vaccines as antigens. And they noticed over when those antigens were first being used as proteins for these vaccines, children started having more allergic reactions, or they noticed an increase in the same time period of food allergies of these particular things, being wheat and peanut. So in the 70s, when I was a small child, very few people were allergic to peanuts in general. Then we started coming out with this round of vaccines, and children started becoming have peanut allergies. So there may be a real connection, or it might just be a coincidence that they also at the same time could have been hybridizing the peanut. Who knows? It's interesting, but it is a fact that your wheat, your peanuts, and other things are not what they used to be.
I would jump in here and say, for anybody who finds this interesting, there's a book called The Peanut Allergy Epidemic, and it is by Heather Fraser. And it's definitely very, very interesting. I had no idea. I'd never thought about that before either. But yeah, you use food ingredients as carriers in vaccines. And so now you've got whole food proteins going into the blood. And the bodies should attack these as foreign particles, because whole proteins should not be in the blood at all, period. And especially if it comes with some other antagonistic stuff, such as pieces of viruses or mercury or whatever. I assume that the body would now forever recognize that as a threat. So to reiterate, if you inject the body with peanut plus mercury plus viruses plus formaldehyde plus whatever else is in this stuff, a smart body probably will recognize the peanut on its own as a threat because of this, because it's how it's been introduced to it.
That's it. And so we are finding now And you, if you remember, well, you may not because I'm a bit older. They would say, no, 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 there's no connection, no connection, no connection. There is a connection. Anytime you're putting something into the body and you're changing it from a natural state to an unnatural state, that is cause for alarm. Your body is designed to run on real natural food. Anytime you put any chemicals in it, including refined sugar, that is a chemical. Your body does not necessarily know how to process it. Now, refined sugar, your body processes it way too well. That's why it's addictive. It's highly addictive. It's known that it's addictive. It should be regulated. It's not regulated. Well, actually, in a way, it is regulated, but not more towards the end consumers. It's regulated much higher up. The United States is only allowed to have X amount of sugar in production, but that doesn't do anything for end consumers.
Hmm.
So the end consumers, the thing that the food industry has done for a very long time is that they will introduce a food. They know that it has an addictive quality, so they will put an advertisement out there that's very appealing, very interesting, eye catching, it grabs you. Add an emotion to it, a very good feel good emotion. Lay's potato chips, can't eat just one. Once they know if they can get you to eat enough potato chips over a period of time, that the bad bacteria in your system is going to overgrow. And now these bacteria are going to send signals to your brain to tell you to eat that bag of potato chips. So there is the potato chip addiction. You have what I call the carbohydrate addiction, the sugar addiction. A lot of people say, oh, but it's all sugar. Yes and no, but the addictions are actually from different bacteria in different foods. So sugar and carbohydrates are not necessarily, okay, refined sugar and carbohydrates are not necessarily exactly the same. There are some differences.
A lot of people come to us with things like candida or fungus and warts. And anytime I see any of this stuff on the list, I'm automatically going to assume that, yes, they do have a serious bacterial imbalance. And what a lot of people really don't know is that this does, just like you're saying, drive behavior, quite literally drive behavior. There's viruses out there that will change the behavior of the animal they infect to put them into the stomach of another animal so they can lay their eggs in it and this kind of stuff. And it's the same in the human body. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody who did not have candida and then they developed it. It can actually change your personality. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, they start to act like drug addicts about sugar. Like they'll be sneaking sugar in, they'll be lying about it. And this is like, these are even people who are consciously trying, I've witnessed this, consciously trying to purge sugar from their diet so they can get rid of the candida. And they find themselves basically like a crackhead fighting themselves against these urges and sneaking out at night and buying candy bars and stuff. And my opinion, the reason for interjecting here is that it's the bacteria doing it. It's literally the bacteria making decisions for you, producing these cravings. And this is part of the reason why once you purge all this bad stuff out, like we just call it bad foods, once you purge the bad foods out, you no longer have these crazy cravings. You don't have candida in your body or weird bacteria telling you to go eat this and that. And you can make your own decisions and eat good food and promote the good bacteria. And the good bacteria, they don't seem to do this. They don't seem to produce any weird cravings. They don't tell you to run out in the middle of the night and go eat a bag of chips.
Well, see, that was the problem that the food industry found out really quick. They said, good food, there's no addictive behavior, so it's going to cost us a whole lot more money to promote it and keep people eating it. If we sell the foods that is going to be addictive, once they're addicted, we don't have to advertise to them anymore. It's done. We have a customer for life. And that is a very sad part of human nature. I'm not going to say good or bad, it's just part of human nature. If your body isn't craving something, you're probably going to forget about it and not do it very often. But the things that make you crave it is in your face. You're going to do it, just like cigarettes and drugs. So, yes, and candida is very, very bad for women, especially. It creates a lot of female issues. We're finding this out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of time, if you're having cramps, bloating, soreness, tenderness, bleeding issues, that are irregular, and they're telling you this is just normal part of life. I'm here to tell you, no, it's not. And yes, we have found that candida plays a large part of that. Depending upon how bad and how long the candida has gone on, will actually depend upon how long it's going to take to get it back into check. Generally, you can get the behavior part in check fairly quickly, but getting the female issues over can take a little bit of time. But once they go through it, they're like, oh my gosh, I was willing to live that way. And once they're healthy and they no longer have any of those issues anymore, they're like, whoa, and they don't want to go back. We do have a few that don't realize it as much, and they get off the program, and then a few months later, they're calling us back, going, "Hey, you know what? Let's get back on this program, because I'm having issues again." But
Yeah.
yes, having a healthy lifestyle now is a lifestyle. It is. There's no quick fix. There's not a magic pill. It literally is a lifestyle of making the decisions every day that I'm going to put healthy foods in my body because I love myself and I want to take care of my body because I can't cash it in and get another one. This is the only one you're going to have. If you take really good care of it, you're going to have an amazing life. If you don't take care of it, you're not going to be able to get out and enjoy. And there's so much in this world to do and enjoy. There really is. So a healthy body, healthy life, happy, just be happy.
I just thought of something that I never thought of before, and you said it basically. It is crazy that good food and supplements and all this stuff, it's not really addictive. Sometimes people ask us like, well, if these supplements help me get better, will I be addicted to them? And my answer is like, no, not really. It's like you don't get addicted to water, but you need water.
Right.
You're not really addicted to salt, but you need salt. But it's weird. It would be very helpful if good food was addictive or if vitamins were addictive, but actually you have to completely consciously control this. But it's with the bad food, with the bad bacteria, they will control you. You see what I'm saying? So it's a very cruel reality of the world here. I really want you to get into the how and the why of the Key Pro, but I want to make a couple comments here first. So when you brought up the wouldn't it be great if, the first thing that came to mind is for me growing up in Canada, but wouldn't it be great if we could have bananas year round in Canada and Sweden? Wouldn't it be great if we could have avocados everywhere, all over the world? Every second you could just buy an avocado. I don't think these things are natural at all, and I don't know if you have many insights into how these things are aged artificially and anything like that, but it's very interesting to me. People ask all the time, well, what do you mean a banana a day isn't good? So where do you think the banana is coming from? Right? Especially in Canada. We're in Canada, half the year it's cold. Where did the banana come from? Did it come from Ecuador? How long ago was it picked? Do you think any part of this is natural? Do you think your body is happy to try and digest these proteins at this time of the year? You mentioned that every food, every protein has an enzyme, but every food has multitudes of proteins. I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands in some of them. And so, you can very easily overwhelm the body. And this is part of the logic behind the simple diet or the local diet, eat local. And because we're not supposed to eat thousands and thousands of different proteins, it does put a lot of stress onto our body. And chances are not all of them are actually going to be digested or absorbed properly. So this can create problems, particularly with dirty blood. If these proteins are not digested properly, not broken down properly, they get into the blood. The body can recognize this as a threat because whole proteins are not supposed to be in the blood. So that was just a comment. You don't need to go into the artificial aging unless you want to. We could always we could always have you back because I'm buzzing with questions, and I'm sure the listeners will as well. This is very, very informative. But before you get into the how and the why of Key Pro, you have talked a little bit about the food industry in a way that suggests conscious intent, maybe even conscious intent to harm. I tend to think that the motivations behind pretty much everybody is kind of just in self-interest and profit, and if it's cheaper to do it this way, we'll probably do it this way, kind of thing, to a certain limit. It's not like house builders can use plastic nails to put houses together. There's some limit on the cheapness that they can go, but usually they will find their way towards that limit as close as they can get to it. The question I have for you is, do you think the food industry itself, the major companies, the Lays, the FDA, do you think they have intentions of malice? What are their intentions? Are they trying to just do the bare minimum from us? Are they trying to keep us from being sick, which is important? Are they at all concerned about our health? And I'm talking about the major institutions here involved in the food industry.
Including the FDA or just
Including the FDA, yeah.
Okay. The FDA is not your friend, but they are not your enemy.
Hmm.
The FDA, if the FDA was not around, oh my God, I don't even want to think of what would be on the market. So the FDA, yes, everyone loves to bash them, but the FDA also has an incredible bank of knowledge They have a lot of learning. They're always learning. They're always doing things. And for the most part, they are for the betterment of the masses, not the individual. So, in other words, if let's look at antiperspirant. First of all, you have to be a pharmaceutical to make an antiperspirant. I know that's not really a food, but believe it or not, the FDA is over that. I did not know this till I was 25 years old. When I was 25, I went to work for a manufacturer of cosmetics, knew the owner quite well, still know him today. And I asked him about making antiperspirant that smelled a certain smell for this perfume to match to have this full line. He goes, "Oh, we can't do that." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, it has aluminum. Antiperspirant has aluminum in it, and you have to be a pharmaceutical company to do that because aluminum, back then when I was 25 years old, he said, a little bit of aluminum consumed in small amounts over a long period of time causes memory loss."
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting? Now, the FDA understands that, but as long as you're only doing a little bit of it over a long period of time, that's in your hands. You could stop doing that at any point in time that you want. So their concern is that something, if the one thing's not going to just kill you or make you sick. So as long as there's just a little bit of something that's not good for you and you continue to do it for a long period of time, that's on you. So antiperspirant causes memory loss. So I look at and knowing this and watching over the last 30 years or so, and you look at the memory loss in that age group from that point in time, the memory loss is substantial. Also, aluminum cookware. All your restaurants use aluminum cookware. Nobody can afford stainless steel cookware anymore. So you're cooking with aluminum. You've got aluminum antiperspirant. You've got aluminum cans. You've got a lot of aluminum, and you wonder why memory loss is rampant. That's the kind of things for me in the food industry go 1 + 1 = 2. That's how the FDA works. Food companies. Well, food companies learned a long time ago. They can fight an uphill battle of trying to produce healthy food that costs them more money, they make less profits, and they're constantly having to advertise to get you to remember about it. They hope you want it, they hope you enjoy it, and they hope your brain triggers a memory from last year because these are seasonal foods usually, if they're real foods,
Mhm.
that you would still want it. And so that's very expensive. Most of these companies go out of business. These food companies that have addictive foods with great advertising, with an emotion, they're in business for life. Not going to really name names, but let's look at cookies, donuts, fast food, all of these, ice cream, they're all you nobody has to remind you to go eat ice cream when the weather starts to warm up. We automatically go, "Oh, ice cream," right? Why aren't we going, "Oh, watermelon?" And how many people go, "Oh my God, I'm dying for watermelon. I can't wait to get it." But now, ice cream, on the other hand, that's another story. That's kind of where you have to look. When people start saying, "You know what? We're going to purposely eat healthy food and not eat this bad food," then manufacturers start making healthy food. But as long as people are going, "Nah, I kind of like my 99-cent chip bag, and I like my little 99-cent little Debbie cakes, and I can get a Coke for 99 cents." As long as the majority of the people would rather have that cheap food than your higher quality food, it's always going to be a problem. So the end consumer drives the behavior of manufacturing.
You don't have to be evil. Like Lay's doesn't have to be evil. Basically, they can recognize consumer demands. They can recognize that it is easier to sell uh, junk food than it is healthy food. Basically, all the biggest food companies in the world sell junk food. They don't sell healthy food. And yeah, they don't have to be evil. They don't have to be set out to ruin the human race or anything. They could just want to stay in business, which is a perfectly reasonable goal for any business. And so I'm actually putting the blame here on the consumer. And although the FDA, definitely am not its friend for it banning some very, very beneficial compounds. Recently, what did they ban? They banned NAC, and they've got a few other ones on their targeted list, and I don't like that at all. And I happen to think they just want to regulate these things because they're beneficial, and so they want to classify them as drugs, basically.
What was their reasoning for banning them?
For NAC, I didn't look into the full case, truthfully. This is a recent thing. I don't know. It's an antioxidant. They weren't out there claiming that it's harmful. They claim that it should be a controlled substance. So I can look it up right now. But truthfully, I think you answered my question, and that's to my satisfaction. In our line of alternative health, you're right. It is very easy for us to bash the FDA and PepsiCo and whoever, and call them evil and stuff. But I don't really think they are. I think every business has a right to want to stay in business, and I think we, the people, it's our duty to be educated. It's not reasonable to assume the FDA is going to educate us on these health things, even though they do know most of this stuff. Like most of the stuff that we're out there promoting, the FDA knows full well. They know all about this. What are they going to do? Run commercials to teach us this stuff? It's kind of beyond us. We're in a really sticky situation with our pretty crummy education system, and obviously news media dominated by everything other than important stuff. And it is up to us. It's totally up to us to get this and to not buy the Lay's or whatever. It's not Lay's fault. So, Leslie, I would love you to take us through the history of Keypro, the how and the why. Why did you start this?
Okay, Keypro, it's a long story, so I'm going to try to make it somewhat short. I actually had a lot of health issues as a very small child, and pretty much throughout my entire life. Spent a lot of time in hospitals from age 2 till 9. Try my entire summers were there. So that was one part of it. So fast forward a little bit to 2011. I got laid off from work, and all of a sudden, my personal physician started in on me about last year, drug dealer of sugar. You sell how much? $8 million worth of drug sugar a year? Why don't you make foods that heal instead of kill? You're in the industry, you understand this, and it just stuck in my brain. And I went to my personal physician for an issue, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, Leslie, let's look at it this way." He goes, "You're in the food industry, right?" "Yes." "You have osteoporosis, right?" "Yes." "Go figure it out." Gee, thanks, doc. And then he turned around and he goes, "Oh, and by the way, my cancer patients are starving to death before they actually die of the treatment. So how about coming up with something for me for them?" All right, so that took a month and one friend. Here you go. Gave that to him. He said, "Hey, now I want 30 grams of fish in this pudding stuff. It actually tastes pretty good, by the way." And, his criteria was 8 ounces, had to have as close to 2,000 calories as I could pump into it. I got it up to about 1870 for 8 ounces cold pudding. Then he said 30 grams of fish. Okay, that was a lot of fun. I would say 6 R&D companies, 5 or 6 specialty ingredients that were pretty much natural, but not quite natural enough. And we actually pulled it off. We had a dessert that had fish that you could not smell or taste.
That's impressive itself.
Yes, I got sent to a food show out west where what I call it is the food supplement, dietary supplement ingredients, where I had a very large eye awakening experience. I had people from all over the world calling me formulators or wanting this recipe and blah, 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 or formulation. And I was so sick in my stomach because I knew that this particular thing wasn't going to do anything for cancer patients. Yes, it checked all the boxes. No, it wasn't going to work. That's what we call a band aid. Band aid, you think it's going to work, but it really doesn't. Yes, it has the calories in it. Yes, it tasted really good. Yes, it had the protein, and it's not going to do anything for any sick person's body. Period.
Is it not going to absorb it?
No, that wasn't really the reason people stop eating is because they lack a particular bacteria set. So the cancer treatment kills off these bacteria, which kills off your appetite. And it doesn't matter how good something tastes, if you do not have an appetite and you're sick, you're not going to eat.
And we do know that a lot of basically our whole immune system is in the guts. The immune system lives in the guts. Essentially, it's the interaction between the nutrients, the antioxidants, and the probiotics, the bacteria. We have a lot of bad bacteria as well, but it's this whole balance basically that makes us human. So you're saying that when chemotherapy comes in, it kills the bacteria that are driving our appetite.
Yes.
And this is for all foods.
Yes.
And so cancer patients are withering away, not necessarily because of the drugs or anything, just because they don't have the appetite. That's very interesting.
And there's so many foods that make their stomachs sick. They just throw it up. They can't keep it down. It's so very hard for them. My heart bleeds for them. It really does. But it's not just cancer patients. There are other people that also have the same problem. You want to balance the good to bad bacteria. So back to the story. So I was like, okay, he goes, so go fix your osteoporosis problem. Well, in the meantime, I had met my other half, and he had an accountant wanted me to switch over to. So I went to this accountant. He asked me what I did. I told him this whole little story I just told you. And he goes, oh, you need to call Jack Mathis. Here's his phone number. Give him a call. He will love to talk to you. And I'm like, so what am I supposed to say? He goes, exactly what you told me. So I called Jack up and he said, oh, awesome. I want you to formulate this product for me. So he laid it all out, and I went over to the FDA's website to see if it was legal or not, if we could do this or not. And I could not, for our startup costs, there was just no way that that was going to fly. Absolutely not going to happen. So I made Jack the promise that I would come up with something as close to this product that he wanted as humanly possible. A little bit more about Jack Mathis. Jack Mathis had actually made fermented dairy products for preemie babies in the hospital here in Atlanta years ago. I don't remember which original hospital, so if I said one, it probably would be wrong. So I won't say it was just one of them. And then he almost got put in jail, the federal penitentiary, for practicing medicine with fermented dairy. So that kind of ended, it really shattered him. It hurt him greatly because he loves to help people. He did close down the dairy in 2012, I believe it was. But like I said, he wanted me to do this. So he gave me a stack, about a foot and a half stack of research paper that him and his scientists and doctors had done over the last, gosh, 100 years. It was amazing, and traced it all back and brought it all forward. And really and truly, nothing has really changed except for how it's done. And the old way is still the better way. I'm not going to say it's the most economical way. So Jack gave me his microbiologist once I went through all this research and got ready to go into the kitchen. The other part was I looked at Jack. I said, you do realize I don't do dairy. I said, so you're asking me to formulate and make a dairy product that I need to be able to taste and try my own self to make sure it's right. He goes, give me a week. I'll have you over any dairy issue you've got. Okay, done. Believe it or not, he did. 1 week, I could drink dairy. Now, I'm not going to say to the greatest amounts. Cheap dairy still gave me a lot of issues. So I had to go to very high quality dairy to get over it and to make this formulation, which we did, which became Kepro. So I made as close to what they wanted. But then I was at home. I said, well, I have major issues with osteoporosis, constipation, and some other stuff. And I didn't exactly realize, but I actually threw some coconut in there and went through the battle of trying to figure out how much or how little to put in there. So I got super constipated and super runny and found that happy middle in there and got it. Then shipped it off to the microbiologist. He goes, Les, we're going with your formulation. It is really, really amazing what you have done with this. I said, okay, awesome. So then we had to do flavor profile, which is if you're in the food, flavor, taste, smell are all very important. Well, fermented dairy is awful. It tastes terrible. It stinks to high heaven. It's just disgusting. And I'm like, this has got to be fixed. So, the first thing I do is go call on my flavor company people. And since I'm not paying them, I can only get just a little bit of their time and a yes or no. So we know how to play the game. It's a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot about microbes, believe it or not, with artificial flavorings, which you can and can't do. And I learned that I don't need any of that stuff. I could do it with all natural fruits very easily and very economically. Here we go. Boom. But what we found out is what we already know. So we made Kepro with a non-flavor to it, just a base, and we dried it and put it into a large bag because what we found out that Jack, Sean, and I did not realize is that people's guts are so bad that most people have to start with about an eighth of a teaspoon or an eighth of a scoop, or they get some really nasty symptoms. And then they have to slowly build up. And along with, if they have some other symptoms or issues, we may have to change their diet a little bit. So with Kepro, there needs to be this hand holding. And that's really important, especially if you want to get over specific issues. And
It's
it
not
works
just
very,
buy it
very
and,
well.
and take it and you'll be fine. Ease
Right.
yourself
No.
into it and watch it.
Right. Yes, you do. And also, I did it in a smoothie because when you add things to it specific to your needs, now you've really got something that makes it a superfood.
Mhm.
Kepro alone is a superfood. Add what your body needs, and now you have a very specific superfood for what your needs are. And when you work with people like yourself, who someone can come to you and go, I'm struggling with this, and you ask them all these different questions, you can kind of say, okay, well, tell you what, it seems like let's start you out with a smoothie. once a day with this and this and this, and do it at this time of the day. And, let's take out these foods for a little while and see how you do. And let's maybe add some more, natural fruits and vegetables into this thing. And let's see how you do. And it's amazing how people have done. As far as osteoporosis, which I have, also spinal stenosis and osteoarthritis. So the arthritis, as long as you're not doing the A1 gene milk and you're doing high quality, you're not going to get the joint inflammation from the milk. The other thing is when you put pasteurized, non-cultured milk in with Kepro and fruit, especially acidic fruit, it's going to release more of that calcium than just pasteurized milk. And that's been a debate late recently is how much calcium are you actually absorbing from pasteurized milk versus, you know, non or cultured. Well, we know that cultured dairy, your absorption of calcium is much greater. The better quality fermented dairy, the better your calcium absorption. Your pasteurized milk is probably going to be lowest on the totem pole. Your raw milk is going to be the next in line. And then cultured is better. And people have known this for thousands of years. So people thousands of years ago actually went from breastfeeding to cultured dairy, not pasteurized milk, what we know. That was not in there as an option.
That's interesting. We get that question a lot too. Like, well, actually, I got that yesterday. What kind of dairy should I put my child on after breast milk? My answer was raw milk, but I think my answer should have been, well, my answer was look for a casein-free, basically a goat milk or something like that. And if you can get it raw, that's what I would do. But either way, dairy is not really our priority for children, and it's not a question I get every single day. But it is a much better answer to go for the fermented, to go for the kefir or something.
Yes, and your cheeses. Your cheeses are now the reason. Well, you say kefir. Yes, that's the European way to pronounce it. Kefir. Yes. And by the way, Jack Mathis was the first person to bring commercial kefir to the United States, which proved to be extremely difficult to do in its original form. So the commercial version of kefir is not the original kefir. It cannot, it will not hold up in the distribution center. Again, going back to that thick line,
Hmm.
quality foods cannot fit into that distribution model. Keypro, the reason we deliver it now just straight to people's houses is part of it, even though it is freeze dried and everyone goes, oh, it's shelf stable. No, it is not shelf stable. We have very healthy oils in there, a high amount of cream, and live cultures, CFUs. CFUs stand for colony forming units, which means not how many is actually in there, it's how many that particular gram will produce, which is actually more impressive.
Will it produce it in the package or in your body?
No, in your body.
Hmm.
So once you reactivate it, the CFUs means that it has been third party tested to reproduce out to 33 billion per gram.
So you consume a gram, and you should, if once that goes through you, you should end up with 30 billion cultures in your intestines.
Yes.
That's
Well,
sweet.
throughout your body. Now that goes into your stomach, and then from there, you have different things. But the beauty of Kepro and putting it into a smoothie is that these cultures are actually very well protected. You're getting your healthy oils, your fats, your cultures. You're also getting real fiber, and this is something that has been amazing to watch with people. Most people are so void of real fiber that when you introduce a heavy, thick, real fiber, their bodies react. And a lot of times they'll get constipation. Why is that? Because they're drinking so many things that are naturally diuretics. They're devoid of natural electrolytes, which are the two things that fiber is going to soak up, is your water. So if you don't have enough water because your electrolytes are not managing your water throughout your body correctly, that's what they do, it pulls it in and out of your cells, then you're going to have issues when you put real fiber into your body and you're kind of devoid of where the water's going. So it's very interesting how it all works. But once you get someone's body working right with Kepro, they actually get much healthier. Their immune system gets better, the constipation gets better, the diarrhea gets better, everything gets better. Now, when you're dealing with people that have IBD, that is a very different story. That's a very dangerous situation for a lot of people. And I've had doctors that say, sometimes you have to get these people healthy enough for Kepro. to introduce it because the bacteriums in there are so diverse that it can actually be more than someone can handle. Remember what I said earlier about the milks again, or even what we call traveler's disease? When you introduce something into someone's body that their body is already overwhelmed, you can actually push it over the edge and make them worse. So you have to be very careful with high quality products like Kepro. You want to go low and slow and see how they do. So it really does work. I actually made it as a medical food, but the medical industry is not very interested. No surprises there.
Of course.
Right. So I've had lots of doctors that go, "Oh, this is great. This is awesome. Go have fun with this." It's like, okay.
They just don't
So
care. Yeah, we've
I
heard that.
don't know if it's if they don't care or if they're totally being controlled now. I do know that back in 1999, early 2000, my particular doctors that I'd had since childhood, they said, "Les, do not have anything else done. We're all retiring. The insurance is now taking control over things. All of us good quality doctors were retiring, and I had no clue what they were talking about. My understanding, and I'm not in the insurance world, so I may be speaking out of turn, don't like doing that too much. But my understanding is that doctors now have a protocol by the insurance mandate that they have to follow pretty much, period. So unless you're in that protocol, I don't know that they can necessarily recommend something now.
Yeah, their hands are very, very tied. They really can't tell you very much with any confidence. And you're right. What they can offer in terms of treatment is very, very narrow. I've had quite a lot of people very excited to go and tell their doctor, and they're even to me, they're like, "Oh no, look, my doctor, he's a good person. He or she is a good person. They're not like those other doctors. They don't push drugs on me and all this, and they've been trying to help me with my diabetes or my osteoporosis or whatever it is. And since I've got this benefit with you guys in your program, I'm very excited to go back and tell them." Basically, they're telling me that their doctor is sort of even a friend and a good person and all this, and then they go to them and they say, "Hey, let's measure my blood sugar. It's been down steadily for weeks," and da da da. And the doctor says, "Oh, that's great," and that's it.
That,
That's it.
that's
That's
it.
great.
That's it. That is reaction. And talking about diabetes, diabetes is one thing that nobody should have. That is so preventable.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And we have found out with Kepro that it's very easy to start reversing that. We found that sugar addiction is also with Kepro a lot easier to reverse because it has in it certain nutrients and bacteriums that help you very much help you get over that addiction. And it's been quite surprising. Even smoking, we've even had a lot of success with smokers getting, stop smoking.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I had known this for a very long time, but I really didn't believe it. I'm one of these people, I'm a prove it to me kind of person. Prove it to me. Well, some of these things take some time to prove. So I had been told a long time ago that if you're actually eating good nutrition, that drug addiction is easy to overcome. And I'm looking at them going, yeah, right. Well, it actually is true. So Kepro has enough of the right nutrition, which we really don't have time to go into, just diagram it all and break it all out. So we'll just lump it in. It has enough of it that it makes it much easier to overcome that addiction, smoking and with sugar. So your body, yes, your body, when you put certain things into it, it's going to stop those sugars. It's going to block them to a point. Is it going to completely stop it? No, but it's going to slow it down. And Kepro, between the fiber, the healthy fats, the oils, the cream, the probiotics, when you put that into your body, it's going to slow that sugar rush down. It's going to slow down that sugar going to the brain and electrical storming it. It's just going to slow it all down, which gives your body time to process it more normally. So you're not going to have that, oh yeah, that sugar rush high in the brain, and you're not going to have that glucose spike. So it just slows all of that down. You're also introducing a lot of bacteria, the right kind of bacteria, in the correct numbers and the correct ones that also go into battle with this also. And it just, with the creams and the healthy oils and fats, also bringing those into it. So it's just kind of like a symphony orchestra that's well working, that all works together. It's not parts are us. And that's the biggest things that I found with dietary supplements is its parts are us. You have your calcium here, your magnesium here, you're this here, you're this here. Probiotics the same way. They're cherry picking them all over the place, and no one has the full symphony. They have their little string symphony or their little band over here. Just they have parts of it, but when you pull together a little bit of everything, now you've got a whole complete package. Then not only that, but now you can also custom tailor it. So let's say someone needs some help with digestive enzymes. Well, papaya, mango, and pineapple are great for that. Put that into a smoothie, boom, there you go. So there's so many things that you can do with it. I've made it so versatile that it just helps with people. And it helps people like you who help other people because now you have a product that now you can create different things with it to custom tailor to somebody's needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really makes the magic and beauty of it as well.
I get asked every single day what to do about this health problem and that health problem. It's not just me. We have a whole team of people. We have dozens and dozens of people who knock at our digital door every day asking for help. And a good proportion of them, I'm not willing to say most or half or something like that, but a good proportion of them daily, their core problem, their main problem is a digestive problem. So they can have this huge list of things, and I could spend 20 minutes saying, hey, this problem is connected to this nutrient deficiency, this problem is connected to this nutrient deficiency, and da-da-da. And usually, well, when it comes to these people, when the thing that jumps off the page on their problem list is a digestive problem, I know that I have to hit that first. I can't just give them supplements. They're probably not even going to absorb them properly, and their problem's not going to go away unless we fix the digestion, basically. So there's a limited amount of things in our toolkit for digestion. We can tell them to consume salt. Salt is necessary for stomach acid. People who have followed us heard us go into great detail on that all the time. Lots of people have transformed their health just by consuming salt. We can recommend probiotics, especially in foods and supplements. We can recommend digestive enzymes. Like you said, it starts to sound like we are cherry picking here, and I don't like doing this. I don't like starting people off on a digestive protocol because they are messed up. And one of the reasons I would rather just give them the 90 essential nutrients. It would save me a lot of time and energy if I could just give them the supplements. And we don't cherry pick it. We don't give you the calcium in this bottle and the magnesium in this bottle. We got products that put it all together. But my point is, I can't even pitch you my own supplements if you have a digestive problem that's serious enough to eclipse the rest of it. And I've made something called a digestive pack, and it attempts to address this. It's got enzymes in it. It's got probiotics in it. It's got what we call oxybody. It's an oxygenating, aloe-based thing. We've got a connective tissue supplement in there as well, because I'm assuming there's going to be gut damage, and the guts are made of connective tissue. But that's quite limited. The last thing on my list is diatomaceous earth, and that basically just goes through and clears out the pipes. Now, all of that is great, but like what we're talking about, this whole conversation here is really about fortifying the bacterial cultures. And I did mention, there's probiotics in my digestive pack, but we need a lot to be able to reestablish the digestion, a lot. So even when I'm selling them probiotics, I'm still telling them you have to eat it in food. You have to consciously eat fermented foods at minimum. We don't mention papaya and pineapple enough, and those are natural sources of enzymes. So something like Parmesan cheese, although it's very hard to recommend American Parmesan cheese. The average person might have sawdust in it. I don't know.
Yeah, I would not. No, absolutely no. I don't think I could say no enough on that one.
So my point in this is what actually brought us together, is that we have a mutual associate, Mr. LaShawn, and he was the one that pushed me towards you. He said, hey, I got benefits from this, so you better take a look at this. And he knows very well that a huge proportion of the people that we deal with, digestion is their primary thing, and whatever we are selling them better be addressing that digestion problem, or they're just probably not going to improve. They might even get worse, truthfully, depending on what you give them. So this is why we're here. And this is why I wanted this full explanation. This is why I want my audience to have this information. And this is why by the time this is posted, it will have a link to my website selling the Key Pro on it. I tried it recently. You just sent me one last month, and I consumed almost all of it before I had to go. Problem with me is I'm not a great experiment because my digestion is pretty much perfect as it is. So I would definitely like to see some more people on this. It's cheaper than my digestion pack. So if we can get results on this in the first month or two, as you're saying, you have to start yourself off kind of small and work your way into it. So maybe the bag lasts you 2 months. If we can get results with that, I'm going to be very, very happy because, as I said, I'm very straightforward. My priority is to sell them our actual supplements, but I can't consciously even recommend those supplements until we've addressed the digestion. Leslie, before we go, could you enlighten us just a little bit about this word active cultures? It's a bit of a confusing thing because you see a lot of people, even I was trained in this business to recommend between 30 and 80 billion active cultures from a probiotic supplement, no specific brand, but we would tell people to go to a health food store and go into the fridge. We would say, good probiotics will usually be in the fridge. You want to get 30 to 80 billion cultures. I'm making that kind of voice because I'm kind of making fun of myself here because I realized after a while we were not really getting results with this system. People were consuming a lot of probiotics, and they're not the cheapest, but they're not the most expensive either. But it's a waste of money if it doesn't work, So what are some things to consider with this whole active culture thing? Is it always true? And is it always true to say it has 30 billion? Is that what's really going to end up in your guts? And
No,
what you said about having them develop in your guts into 30 billion, that's very interesting to me because that's a concept that is really not advertised in the probiotic business at all.
no, but there's also something else that's even probably a really good secret that I won't, I'll highlight it, but I won't get into it because it really is a secret of Kepro. You know what a good army is, right? A military army. They have your foot soldiers, and you have a lot of those. Then you have your artillery. Then you have your tanks. Then you have your planes. Then you have your big bombs, right? And you have less of these bigger, more high-powered ones,
Mm-hmm.
correct? But you have all of them, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you took out your infantry, would your army be as good? No.
Of
If you
course.
took out your tanks, would your army be as good? No. If you took out your planes, would your army be as good? No. This is the problem with cherry picking bacteria strands. There are bacteria strands in certain cultures that cannot live without each other. So when you start cherry picking these strands out, because some scientists said, oh, well, lactobacillus XYZ is in this amount in 10 bazillion, works for this. Okay, that's in a scientific laboratory, not in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You need the entire army, which means that was the problem with kefir. It has the entire army in it. It does not work on the shelf, okay, in a wet form. So it took us over a year to figure out how to produce it and give it that shelf life and keep it all intact because I wasn't willing to make the product unless it was completely intact to the end user. So that is why we mail it. We don't mail it to any distribution centers. We mail it from the plant to the person to get it in the absolute best form, the freshest possible that we can possibly do it with the full set of army and nutrients that you need, including your healthy fats and oils. And when you have all of those together, it just works. Especially when people are really having issues digesting their food and you do the 12-hour fasting window, then you kind of eliminate some foods, they're going to get better. It's amazing what happens. The body is an amazing machine when you give it what it needs. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there. But yes, you want a full military army when you do bacteria, not cherry picked. That's the difference. That's actually more important than, yes, you do need a lot. And Jack Mathis would tell you to drink a quart of kefir every single day. I think that's overkill because I can't even drink a cup of this stuff,
It's
especially
quite a lot.
kefir. It is. So I can do a half a cup of kefir, which is 2 scoops. So if you're doing 1 scoop, that is, a fourth of a cup of full powered, what we call fermented liquid dairy. And it works. Plus, when you add in your fruit to it or your vegetables into it, you're adding that also. So now you're creating the perfect storm for bacteria to thrive and flourish. Now, we have had people when we're doing the sugar addiction that they actually get worse at first. And what we've have to tell people is that when you have a gut full of bad bacteria and you pull it in an army of good bacteria, the bad bacteria are going to go, oh crap, we're in trouble. We need food, just like an army needs ammunition. And the ammunition for bad bacteria is food. They're going to start telling your brain, We want chips, we want Coke, we want cake, we want it all. Stuff your face. If you go slow and low enough, it's not going to be in your face as much. But if you jump into it too quickly, it's going to be in your face, and you're going to realize this is an issue. And some people don't even realize that they have a bag of chips in their hand. I've actually got people started on it and said, "What are you eating? Bag of chips? Why?" I don't know. What did I tell you not to do for 2 weeks? Yeah, I don't know why. I said, because you have too much bad bacteria in your body and you don't have enough good bacteria to overcome it yet. So you're going to have to be more mindful and put them down. I've had people do that with candy also and sugar. And as soon as they put the sugar back in their body, their stomach starts hurting.
Hmm.
So it is very true. You have to give your body that time to overcome that bad bacteria and get that bad bacteria, the good bacteria army built to be in control. I hope that helps without too long of an explanation.
That did help. Honestly, this whole thing was very fascinating, and I will have to get you back on. I have a couple
Sure.
of comments here. So you mentioned the inflammation of bacteria. I just wanted to mention that in our books, rheumatoid arthritis is actually caused by a bacterial infection, and it's the weird one. Like out of all the things that people come to us with, it's either a digestive problem or it's a nutrient deficiency, or it's rheumatoid arthritis. Is the one weird one, where it is actually a bacterial infection. So everything that we said today is going to apply to this, and in our case we know that most likely we're actually going to need an antibiotic, a pharmaceutical antibiotic to kill that bacteria.
Yes.
Why? Because otherwise they would have to completely reconstitute their digestive system, basically. So everything that we've just talked about today, you would need to overhaul yourself in order to purge yourself of this bacterial infection. Natural antibiotics, we do have them. They're herbal antibiotics, and they can work. But for the person who, the 280-pound American, 45 years old, it's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to work.
Right.
They probably are going to need the pharmaceuticals, just stronger, or they're going to need to fully overhaul their health from the bottom up, starting with their good bacterial cultures. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that anybody who's suffering with any type of joint inflammation, it might not even be rheumatoid arthritis, but it might very well have something to do with a bacterial thing. And the last thing I want to close out with here is that I did a little bit of research on NAC while we were here. Now, it is an antioxidant in garlic. This is the primary thing that you're going to find it in. And a couple of the articles that I pulled up here, one of them here is called "The Real Reason the NAC Supplement Got Banned." And I thought this was interesting, and I will close off with it. And I will not use the keywords that might get us banned, but the virus that prompted our masters to shut down the world for in 2020 has this thing called spike protein damages that everybody's worried about. So the conspiracy theory, this is a conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory is that the FDA banned NAC because it was shown to provide protection from this viral spike protein damage. So isn't that interesting? And this is one case of many similar related cases where that really makes me not think of the FDA as our friend. But at the very same time, you could also think from an industry perspective, of course, they would want to regulate things that do have a beneficial effect. And I will close on one of our earliest recordings that we use in our business is Dr. Wallach's Dead Doctors Don't Lie from the early 90s. And in that, he pointed out to studies that had remarkable results using chicken cartilage for arthritis, and the fact that once it was shown that this had a benefit on people, that the FDA was indeed interested in patenting basically chicken cartilage as a drug. So you wouldn't be able to buy chicken cartilage as a food, it would be a drug. Of course, that never fully happened, but they did something similar with NAC in its history. The NAC could both be prescribed in a pharmaceutical form, and you could just buy it as a supplement form, or of course you could just buy garlic and there'd be some NAC in it. So it's a bit of a tangled mess here, but that's the conspiracy answer of why they actually banned NAC. And to tell you the truth, when I was doing my little research here, maybe I was trying to pay attention to you, obviously, but so maybe I didn't look that deeply into it. But I can't actually find a really good reason. Like, I can't find the FDA coming out here and saying this substance is extremely dangerous, and that is why we must keep it away from the American people. Absolutely not. It's an important compound, and that's why they want to regulate it, basically.
Just remember who pays the FDA the most amount of money. All you have to really do is follow the money.
Who pays them?
Pharmaceutical companies.
Well, there you go.
You got to remember, billions of dollars. That goes to the FDA to get these drugs approved for all the testing and all the things that they do. So their moneymaker is pharmaceutical drugs. Boy, I hope I don't get us in trouble here. You can chop anything out of here you want. I mean, right? But you have to remember, always follow the money, and that tells the truth. It always does. And the FDA regulates drugs, not food. And they will tell you, we do not approve, excuse me, they approve drugs. They do not approve food. This is one thing that they will tell you. They do regulate food and they approve pharmaceuticals. Very different. And food doesn't make them a lot of money. It's very much that part of their world is a headache for them. It really is a headache. Very low pay, very little money out of it, a lot of headaches. Pharmaceuticals, lots of money, not quite so many headaches. Which would you do?
Yeah, just there's a lot more business that they're doing with the pharmaceutical industry anyways. It's the pharmaceutical industry has to go through the FDA, whereas not all food necessarily does. If you're a little farmer, you don't really have to deal with the FDA.
Right. You just have to deal with the other entities out there. So, there's follow the money, but the most important thing that I hope people get out of there is not the finger pointing and blaming of different, industries, but learning to take responsibility for your own health because it is in your hands. Nobody is forcing you to eat any bad food. That is your choice that you're doing to yourself. So, what I always end things with is take care of your body, and your body will take care of you. Make good food choices and live a healthy life.
Absolutely. Leslie, that was wonderful. This whole talk was wonderful.
That hand holding I mentioned, that's so critically important. It really, really, really is. People do not value that enough. It's invaluable. You guys do it for free, which is just absolutely amazing. They need to take full advantage of that. Absolutely want to reiterate that 100%. I support my people like you that do it because the service that you're doing is just, I mean, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing that you educate yourselves, the length of time that you spend educating and learning how to help people. So, yes, absolutely, your listeners need to get it 100% from you. If you have a question and you guys don't know about it, I will be happy to educate y'all on everything. So glad that I found you guys and love what you guys do for people.
Awesome. Yeah, and honestly, what you said about it's necessary to hold hands, we know this. This is why we do it for free. Because we can't just sell you supplements and say good luck. We can't. We have to be there. We have to be accountable for it. And Leslie, this has been awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody else who listened. And until next time.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye.
Take care. And for more health information, make sure to check out our YouTube or our Instagram. And you can actually message us there on the Instagram account, and we will respond to every message. And definitely check out my book, Fake Diseases. It covers all of the major topics that come up, like birth defects, blood sugar problems, bone and joint problems, cancer, autoimmune problems, and more. And it's on Amazon for just $9.99. And of course, make sure to check out our food page, Notice Foods, that's on YouTube, and at Notice Foods on Instagram. We have a lot of content up there teaching you how to cook without the bad foods that Dr. Wallach describes, and Dr. Glidden's 12 bad foods, all of that, all of the rules that you need to know. And we have experienced chefs and bakers who will answer the questions in those inboxes. Definitely get yourself a copy of Dr. Wallach's cookbook. This is basically a textbook about how to cook without the bad foods, particularly oil and gluten. This is 300 pages stuffed full of recipes without the bad foods that they're usually made from.